Welcome, bienvenido to the Mr. Franquicias podcast, the the number one podcast, bilingual podcast in the nation in English and Spanish. And today we have um, a great guest, a great speaker. We have someone that is a trendsetter in the franchising industry, has been collaborating, connecting, providing so much support to the fabric of the franchising industry for many years. And for me, it is a great honor for me to introduce to you Dr. John Hayes, the chair of Titus Center for Franchising, live from West Palm Beach, Florida. My friend, how are you? How you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm happy and excited to have you as a guest in our podcast. I mean, I know that you live in the heart of what was it? Florida is what? The heart of the Latino community in the nation. I mean, that's like the capital. Miami is the capital of Latin America, sort of, per se.
Exactly.
So you are very well connected with a lot of Latinos, and I'm sure that you know exactly what Latinos are doing in the franchising industry. So we're very happy and excited. Thank you for taking the time to be here today and to talk about all your great accomplishments. So why don't we start by you telling us, I mean, who is Dr. John? How do you pronounce it? Hayes?
Hayes.
Hayes.
Yep. Hard A. Hayes.
Yeah. Hayes, yeah.
Like Hayes.
Hayes, yeah. Yeah, Dr. Hayes. So why don't we start by when were you born? Where you grew up? Are you originally from Florida or not?
No, not at all from Florida. I'm from Ohio, the Midwest.
Got it.
And grew up there and went to college there at Kent State University. And I left Ohio when I was about 25 years old. I had earned my bachelor's and master's degrees in journalism. And I was writing for a newspaper. And then I had an opportunity to teach journalism for Kent State University. And I did that. And at age 25, I got an opportunity to go to Philadelphia, to Temple University in Philadelphia. Great opportunity for me there.
To work or study at Temple?
Both. They said if you come here and teach the magazine writing program at Temple University, we will pay for you to get your PhD, which I did. So that I got my PhD free. I got my master's degree free from Kent State. Then I got my PhD free. It was I moved over there in 1976, and took me about 9 years to complete my PhD, about 7 years until I started the program. But I was teaching full-time and working on my degree at the same time, and loved being in Philadelphia. I thought that was terrific.
How long do you live in Philadelphia?
I was there about 20 years.
20 years, wow. So you got to know the Philly metro area very well.
I did, and I was in New York a lot because I was the New York markets editor for Writers Digest magazine, which would every month I would go into the city. I would interview editors and publishers of magazines and books and find out what they were looking for from writers, and then I would report that. It would come out in Writers Digest magazine. So it was I love that Northeast. Living in Philadelphia, you have great access to New York City, have great access by train to Washington, D.C.
Yeah. In the middle.
You're right in the middle. You can drive up to the Pocono Mountains and enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
So I love that. It was great living there, but too many snowstorms.
I know. But so you, right out of college, I guess you started working as a journalist. Do you work for, I mean, besides whatever the work you did in Philly, do you work for any particular, I guess, entity or company in Ohio right out of college, or were you involved?
Right out of college, I got hired by State University to teach basic journalism classes. So I was very fortunate. And they said, if you'll do that, we'll pay for you to get your master's degree in journalism. You teach for us. And so that took me about maybe a year and a half to finish my master's degree. And so I continued teaching for Kent State. That was my first real job out of college. And I loved that. But I continued to freelance because college professors don't make any money. You know, it's a great job.
Yeah,
and it's 9 months out of the year, but I had to teach in the summer as well in order to make enough money to live. And then I did a lot of freelance work. So I was writing constantly, newspapers, magazines, started writing books when I was in Philadelphia.
Are you reading any books? Or?
Yeah, I've got about 20 some books.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me about the first one, the first book that you wrote. What about what?
The first book was a biography of the world's master wood carver, who I grew up in his backyard in Little Dover, Ohio.
Wow.
And he was of Swiss descent, and he used to take wood and whittle it in his spare time. But he's got Mooney Warder is his name. You ever go to Ohio, go down 77, get off at Dover, and go see the Warther Museum. And I happen to know him. He was probably, he was at least in his 70s when I was, living there as a kid in high school. We used to go visit him, and we would listen to his stories and watch him carve. I mean, he carved the Lincoln Memorial funeral train in ebony and ivory. It's priceless. It's in his museum in Little Dover, Ohio, along with probably 50, 60 other locomotives that he carved. Amazing things there.
So I'm assuming that that was your first book. And I'm assuming that you have written a significant, out of all of those 20 plus, how many of those books are related to the franchising industry? I just want to know.
I think eight of them maybe are related to business topics, because I also co-authored some books.
Okay.
So I wrote Network Marketing for Dummies with Zig Ziglar, big motivational speaker throughout.
Yeah, I know him. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not about franchising, but it's about business. And then I wrote books for other people, which is how I got to write about franchising. So it looks to me that I can tell that you're a great speaker. So you started developing your speaking or your motivational speaking, I guess, career, if I should call it, at an early stage. What should I say, or not? Out of which? Out of
like your motivation. I see that you are a professional, speaker. You do a lot of speaking engagement, and you speak very well and very eloquently. The question is, how early would you develop those skills to be able to become?
I was speaking when I was at Kent State. I would get invited by, the Lions Club, the Rotary Club, the Elks, the Optimist Club, different organizations would ask me to come, and maybe it was a topic on something that I had written that was in the newspaper, and they would want me to come and talk about that. I would get invited to speak about James Michener. He was a very famous novelist, but he also wrote nonfiction. He wrote books like Hawaii, Iberia, The Source. Iberia, all about Spain. It was big. People would read that novel that he wrote and book their trip to Spain as a result. I mean, it did great. This guy sold millions of copies of books. Unfortunately, he's been dead since the mid-1990s or so. And his books are still well known, but not a lot of people know him anymore. But I wrote a biography of James Michener. It was actually my doctoral dissertation. And so I still get invited to speak about him and a lot of other topics, but mostly I'm doing a half a dozen speeches this summer, including Franquicias Fest. I'm really looking forward to that.
Of course,
in New York.
of course. We're going to talk about
Marriott Marquis. It's an exciting place to be.
Yeah.
It's for the Latino world. I think that this is amazing that that's happening. I wish I could deliver my speech in Spanish, but I won't be able to.
People will understand you for sure, no problem. But
most all of my speeches now are related to franchising, helping people.
So how do you connect it with the franchising industry? By when? Which year?
1979. I was at Temple University teaching, making no money. I was making like $12,500 a year as an assistant professor, head of the magazine writing program. So I couldn't make any money, and I was freelancing. And I thought, I've got to do something better than getting paid for articles, because you don't get paid that much as a freelancer. So I decided. The university asked me, "Do you have a topic you want to teach about on a Saturday morning, and we'll pay you $65 to teach a course?" I said, "Yeah, sure. I'd like to teach a course called How to Write a Book to Promote Your Business." And I hadn't done that yet, but I knew it was right. I knew it was coming. I knew that the media, if you give the media a book, they'll say you're an expert, whether you are or not. The media will say you're an expert. It's fake media, but it existed long before Donald Trump.
I'm sure about that, yeah.
So I knew that was the thing to do. Help people in business write a book.
Yep.
And they would have money to pay me. And at the time, it doesn't seem like very much money now, but at the time I said, I will write your book for $10,000. And I never taught that class. Nobody signed up for the class, but 3 people said, "Here's my name and my phone number. I can't make the class on Saturday. Please call me. Let's go to lunch. I want to talk about you writing my book." And the first one was a lawyer, and I wrote his book. The second one was a manufacturing guru, a consultant. I wrote How to Win Productivity in Manufacturing. Wow. It doesn't sound interesting, but I got $10,000 to write it. The American Management Association published the book, and this man was a consultant. He gave the book away to try to get clients, and it worked very well for him, because everybody has a brochure. This is way before the internet, so there were no websites. Everybody has a brochure, but who reads a brochure? You look at the brochure, you're going to throw it away.
The book opened a lot of doors for sure. Plus, now you have
absolutely
author,
and it got media exposure. Right? He got publicized in books, in magazines and newspapers as a result of having a book. So the third guy who called me said that he was a franchisor. I had no clue. What's a franchisor? I had to look it up in the dictionary. There was no internet. And the dictionary didn't have the word franchisor. So I was lost. So I said to him, his name was John Kinch. He was in Wilmington, Delaware. And I said to him, what kind of business is it that you have? And he said, it's cooperative direct mail advertising. What is that? I had no idea. How was I going to write a book about that? And first I told him, no, I couldn't write it. And then he said, well, I franchise it. That didn't mean anything to me either. He said, I franchise like McDonald's. Okay. Well, I knew I couldn't write about cooperative direct mail advertising. Who needs to read about that? Not a book. Yeah. But it hit me. Wait a minute. This is about franchising. So I ran to the library to look up titles of books in the card catalog, which nobody seems to know how to do anymore because, again, we got the internet. And it said there was no book on franchising. Wow. I called him up and I said, I'll write your book. It's going to be called Franchising, the Inside Story. He said, go for it. Where do I send the money? And I got $10,000 for that book. And usually I would write these books, and when I was done writing it and turned it in, that was it. I didn't do any more. I walked on to the next book looking for my next $10,000. But the franchising book never went away. I could never walk away from it because media would call me and say, can we interview you about franchising? Nobody knows anything about it. International Franchise Association called me
Yeah.
and said, can we excerpt your book in our magazine? Can you come and speak to our groups? Can you know, I had so many offers from franchise companies. I made in 1 year about $100,000.
Wow.
And the university was paying me $12,500. So when I got my PhD in 1985, the university said, this is great. We're going to promote you to associate professor, and we're going to pay you $18,000 a year. And woo! And I said, I'm sorry. I'm going to resign. I'll come back to teach when I can afford a professor's salary. I can't afford to do that because I was making $100,000 already.
Of course, yeah.
So I left the university 1985. I hated to leave. Killed my mother. She thought she was so proud of her son, the professor at Temple University, making no money, Mom. So she said, why are you going to leave that? That's a great job. It's prestige. Because no money. I left it because we don't value education in America. We don't value professors. So, they don't get paid anything.
So you're
I moved on from there.
So technically that book, it became like your ticket to the franchising industry in a way?
That was absolutely my ticket to franchising. And the media made it possible for me because, frankly, I knew nothing about franchising. I wrote the book in 6 months. So I interviewed 100 people. I'd interview anybody who had anything to do with franchising, founders of companies, franchisees, lawyers, anybody who was involved in franchising, I would interview. I interviewed 100 people. I wrote the book in less than 6 months' time. And then the book was published about, it took another 4 or 5 months till the book was published. Then the publisher asked me to do radio interviews, much like this interview I'm doing with you, but it was all by telephone. I would be in Philadelphia, but in Chicago, a radio station would interview me one morning. And the next day, somebody from Chicago who heard that interview would say, hey, I need you. Can you write this? Can you write that? Can you come speak? Can you advise us? Sure, I needed the money.
So you were in demand.
Yeah, but the book, the media said I was the world authority on franchising. I was not. I never worked for a franchise company. I never owned a franchise. All I did was spend 6 months interviewing 100 people and writing a book. And in the media's eyes, that made me the expert. Well, thank God it did, because over the years, I got better and better and better. I did own franchise companies. I became the president of a big, major franchise brand.
Who's that?
And then I went back to the university, where I love being at a university.
So technically, you never became like a franchisee. So you
I bought the best franchise I owned several with partners. The best one I owned, We Buy Ugly Houses. I owned a franchise of that brand in Dallas, Texas. And I made a lot of money from that, but I had a partner doing all the work. Then Home Builders of America, We Buy Ugly Houses, asked me to join their board of directors. And I've done a lot. I was on the Dwyer Group board of directors. It's now known as Neighborly, one of the biggest conglomerates in franchising, 30-some brands. So I was on the Dwyer Group board. I was on the Homevestors board. While I was on the board at Homevestors, the founder got ill and died very quickly. In the process, while he was dying, he and his family said, we want you to succeed me as the president and CEO of We Buy Ugly Houses. And I said yes. So I became a franchisor. I'm one of the few people, you don't know too many people who have been a supplier to franchise companies, working in a support area, a franchisee, and a franchisor. I have those credentials.
Wow. So so technically you play all the bases.
Yeah, exactly.
Play all the bases. But, remember that you as a professor, I remember that I took a class with you when I was in the process to becoming, as a matter of fact, I think I have my pin here, my CFE. Yeah. This is thanks to you, by the way.
Oh, great.
I became a certified franchise executive, and I took one of your classes about a year ago at the International Franchise Expo.
Yeah.
And I know that you were making that story about your experience as a franchisor, and that was very interesting to hear. I mean, that you became literally, you inherited sort of a franchise brand.
Yeah.
What happened to that brand? It's still around?
It's still around. So in 2007 and 8, during the Great Recession, we fell on hard times because it was impossible to sell anybody a house in those times. And our franchisees are investors, so they had a lot of money tied up in houses that they could not sell. And we had money tied up in houses that they couldn't sell. So I managed to find a buyer for the company. And just so happened, I wrote a book with him called Start Small, Finish Big, 15 Lessons from the co-founder of Subway, Fred DeLuca. I wrote his book.
Really?
And he and I remained in touch through the years. And he had a lot of money, and he was always looking for places to put his money. So he invested in We Buy Ugly Houses, and then ultimately he bought the company. He saved it from what probably would have been a bankruptcy in 2008. And that was at the time I said, okay, well, I want to go back to a university. I don't want to run We Buy Ugly Houses. I did. He bought it 2000, I think in the spring of 2008. And I left in January of 2009 so that I could go back. I wrote another book in there, but I also went back, started looking for a university position.
And all of this happened while you were living in Philadelphia?
I was living in Dallas by this time. I moved from Philadelphia in 1994. There had been 14 snow and ice storms back to back that winter. And I said to my wife and kids, let's move south and get out of the snow belt. And I had a client in Dallas. It was called I Can't Believe It's Yogurt, franchise company, about 300, 400 units.
Wow.
And they offered me office space to expand my marketing business at the time and to oversee their marketing as well. And they bought 2 or 3 more brands at the time. So I moved to Dallas to do that. It also got me closer to Don Dwyer down in Waco, Texas, where he was building the Dwyer Group long before it became Neighborly. And I did a lot of work with him, and I was on his board. So, yeah, I loved Dallas. It wasn't a great part of the country to live in, except for business. It wasn't culturally rich like Philadelphia, New York, Washington, D.C. Love that. I would love to live in downtown Philadelphia right now, but I'm too old for the snow.
I love Philly. I usually attend. I've been in that. They usually do a franchise event there. Springboard, yeah. Springboard.
Every September, I'll be there. I love it. That event, I go every year. I take 2 of my students. I'll be
there with you then. I'm planning to attend this year too.
Yeah, good.
But so then when did you move from Texas to Florida?
So I didn't move directly from Texas to Florida because when I started looking for a university position, I don't know how it happened. I only can say it's by the grace of God. God opens doors for me. Doors close, windows close. God opens them, and I walk through some of them. So out of the blue one day, while I was looking for a position, I got a call from Gulf University for Science and Technology. I've never heard of Gulf University. And I said to my wife, we were living in Dallas, I said, this must be Houston, Louisiana, someplace, Florida, somewhere along the Gulf.
Yeah.
So when I called them back, because they left me a voicemail and say, please give us a call, we want to interview you. And they said, well, we're in Kuwait. And I said, as in the Middle East? Yep, Kuwait, right next to Saudi Arabia. I said, I'm not coming to Kuwait. I was already in Saudi Arabia for a week to lecture about franchising. So my wife would never go there. That's not. And they said, whoa, wait a minute. We are very Americanized, westernized in Kuwait. All of the big franchise companies are in Kuwait from America.
Which year was this? This was after the invasion, whatever took place. I know.
Oh, yeah. Long after that. Yeah, that they loved George Bush. Yeah, because he saved Kuwait. But that had happened long before. Yeah. And Kuwait is very wealthy. And Kuwait built a private university called Gulf University. And they wanted Westerners for faculty. And I was perfect for that opportunity because they said you can teach communications in the MBA program. You can teach marketing in the MBA and the undergraduate program. And you can teach franchising and be a franchise consultant because there's great interest in franchising. Yeah. So, and all that happened, and I stayed in Kuwait for 7 years. I was there.
Wow. So you back and left, and you took the whole family, or?
Oh yeah. Well, no, not my children. Children were grown.
Okay.
Oh, it was my wife and I. And Kuwait is, even though it sounds crazy, because it's a third world country, Kuwait gives you a civilized life. We loved our time in Kuwait. It was easier than living in the United States because everything's taken care of. You can have maids if you want them. We had one, did not live with us, but she came 3 times a week. I had a driver. I bought a car, had a driver from Bangladesh. I mean, I didn't have to worry about, because it's crazy. You know, the street names are in Arabic, not in English, and I don't know any Arabic. So
you learned, I was going to ask you.
I learned a word here and there from my students, but it's difficult language. And I taught in English. You were required to teach in English. So Kuwait was wonderful. The university paid for most of our housing. They gave us a transportation allowance. They gave us tickets back home every year, back and forth, to go back and see our family. I ended up having business like the IFE, International Franchise Expo. I taught that every year. So I would fly back to the United States several times a year. That was an experience that I am so happy that I did not miss, that I didn't say, oh, no, the Middle East, I don't like the food, I don't like the people, they're terrorists, they're this, they're that. No, they're not terrorists. In fact, they would say the terrorists live in the United States. They don't live over here. And,
interesting.
Hey, I lived in Kuwait for 7 years. No one was ever shot at a mall, at a movie theater, at a school. Outrageous. Nobody. Yeah. No shootings. Guns are banned. They're there, but they're not allowed. Drugs are banned. They're there, but not allowed. And I mean, this is graphic. I hate to say it, but you mess with guns and you mess with drugs, you're likely to be executed or hung or just put in a prison, and nobody will ever, you won't surface again. It's harsh. But you could go to the movie theater or the mall, or you send your kids to school and never have to think twice about, gee, will I see my little kid again, or are they going to get shot at school? It's terrible the way we live in the United States.
So, John, what brought you back to the United States after, having such a comfortable?
So I was in Kuwait, and one of my longtime clients in West Palm Beach, United Franchise Group, founded by Ray Titus, he sent me a note one day and said, I've given a chunk of money to a private university called Palm Beach Atlantic University, downtown West Palm Beach. I gave them a chunk of money if they would start a center to educate students about franchising, because I'll hire those graduates. And they can get a degree in marketing, or they can get a degree in management, public relations, leadership, and they can earn a concentration in franchising. And he said, we need a PhD who knows how to teach franchising. And he said, I told the president of the university, he lives in Kuwait, we just need him to come home. And I was ready to come home. After 7 years in Kuwait. I could have stayed longer, but again, God opens doors when you least expect it. This was a big door. This was a double door saying, come home and be the chair for franchise leadership at Palm Beach Atlantic University, start the Titus Center, start teaching young people how to buy franchises, how to franchise their business, teach them all about franchising. And so that's what I do.
So the Titus Center. So, I know that a lot of people, obviously, those that are in the franchising industry, everybody knows about the Titus Center. I know that you are also well connected with International Franchise Association also, all that stuff. But explain to the public so people get an idea. So you went to work at the university first, and then later on, how long it took to create the Titus Center, or that was created from the get-go?
Yeah, I created it. So while I was in Kuwait, in January of 2017, I was still in Kuwait. And the university asked me to create 3 courses on franchising. And so I wrote those courses while I was in Kuwait. And then I returned home in the summer of 2017, moved to Florida, and in the fall semester 2017, we started the Titus Center for Franchising. And a student can take 3 courses in franchising and do a franchise internship, and they earn a concentration, not a degree, but a concentration in franchising along with their degree. So they get their degree in, let's say, international business or marketing, and they get the concentration in franchising. If they have a concentration in franchising, they will be very, very much in demand. So this is now, I ended 6 years, started graduating students about 4 years ago.
So who's the president of the university?
Deborah Schwinn.
Deborah Schwinn, okay.
Is the president. And the dean of the business school, the Rinker School of Business, is Brian Stroud. They embrace franchising. We are one of several centers of excellence at Palm Beach Atlantic University. I think we're probably the lead center at the university. We raise money to underwrite our operating budget. We provide a lot of support to people. Somebody who doesn't know anything about franchising and they don't want to get a degree, they could come to the university to one of our seminars, or they can sit in on our classes. It's a great opportunity. Most people, as you know very well, Rafael, most people, they don't know anything about franchising. They think it's McDonald's, and it is McDonald's. But, it's a lot of other brands as well. Almost 5,000 brands in franchising. And all those brands need people to work for them. And they sell franchises. So this little university, we've only got 3,000 some students. And this little university has about 70 students. When I go back in the fall, there'll be about 70 students in my franchise program studying to get a concentration in franchising, hoping 97% of them want to become franchisees. They don't want to go to work. They want to be in business for themselves. And so they're looking at franchises. Of my graduates, 6 of them are already franchisees.
So technically,
franchisees, about 15 of them work for franchise companies.
So there is no such a thing like a degree in franchising yet. So
not at Palm Beach Atlantic. We do not offer a degree.
Well, I in order for me to become a certified franchise executive, I enrolled in the Louisville University.
Yeah.
Program. They have a similar program.
Yeah.
And I noticed that I know that is you guys, Louisville, and also Brown University has also a program, but there is nobody, no educational institution has like I don't know, an associate degree or a bachelor's degree in franchising.
No,
will you be the first one, doctor, that will create that program and make that happen?
Yes. So our board of trustees is talking about when we have a new business school, which we're going to hopefully start building in the next year, and as the program grows, if it grew to 600 students, for example, or 300 students perhaps, then we'd want to have a major in franchising. But no one is asking for that right now. The concentration equips students with some great knowledge about franchising. My students know as much about franchising more than a first-year franchisee knows about franchising. So they become very valuable to franchisors and supplier companies like you, Rafael. If you start looking for an entry-level employee, you'll want one of my students. You'll want to offer them an internship, which they would love, and you'll want to hire them because they already know about franchising.
No, what you guys are doing is really great. I mean, for the industry, because you're 100% correct. As the time go by, there are more and more people embracing the franchising industry. There'll be a lot more brand. There'll be a lot more growth. Obviously, franchise company need to have competent, qualified employees that can really do and perform the job required to really accelerate the growth of all of these franchise brands. That's the way it is. Yeah. So I see that your contribution is significantly in that sense by being able to educate. How many students have come through your program already so far since you started this?
So more than 100 have been in a franchise class to date, and 50 some have graduated with a concentration in franchising.
And the classes are live or online? Or
live. They're in the classroom. And there are other universities that are offering some classes in franchising. No one offers a concentration like we do. And most of them do not teach live in the classroom. So I do. And if you come to West Palm Beach, then I'll bring you into the classroom to speak to my students. And I do that about 15 times every semester.
I would love to know. I would love to know.
Last semester, I had Dan Cathy. He's the chairman of the board of Chick-fil-A. He's the son of the founder, Truett Cathy, of Chick-fil-A. Dan Cathy lives in South Florida in the winter months. He comes over to the university, and my students have one-on-one contact with him. It's a great, and not only with Dan Cathy, Ray Titus comes several times in a semester to see what the students are doing and to mentor them, spend time with them. So does Jeff Sieber from Fran Fund, Dina Dwyer Owens from the Dwyer Group. In fact, she established a scholarship in her father's name, which we give every year, along with other scholarships. So a lot of people who are the movers and shakers in franchising, they come to the campus to spend time with our students. And that's a great advantage.
I totally agree. I would love to, first of all, I love the campus. It looks very beautiful, very clean, very pretty, very Floridian, very
it is.
Right there, right next to the beach. So I definitely would love to go and participate. And I know that you and I had conversation or perhaps putting together, an event in your,
absolutely. We got to do that. We're, as you said,
the Latino franchise.
Yeah, as you said, we're the heart of the Latino market here in South Florida. So the Latino Franchise Association must have a presence at the Titus Center for Franchising, and we need to do an event.
I definitely agree with you, and I would like to share some other idea that I have that would accelerate what we're doing at the national level, tapping into university, but we'll talk about it later. Okay. What I really want to now know, I know that all of this that you're doing in terms of franchising of the university has been because of the founder of the United Franchise Group,
right? Ray Titus.
Ray Titus. So how supportive have his company been for you doing? Talk to me about them, about United Franchise Group.
You know, people sometimes think because it's called the Titus Center for Franchising that it's part of United Franchise Group, but it's not. He gave the money to buy the naming rights to the center. And that's why it's called the Titus Center. But if I call him and say, and I can call him, I can call his son AJ, who you met recently at the International Franchise Expo. Mm-hmm. He's got two other sons who work for him. And because Ray is very, very busy running 8-9 brands. So it's, you know, I can't just call him up and say, hey, I need you for 10 minutes. I mean, I could, but I don't do that because I respect his time. He doesn't tell me what to do or what we have to do. But anytime I call him and say, would you come and speak to the students about this? Or maybe his son, one of his sons will come and do it because they're very good as well. Mm-hmm. I take field trips from time to time when the United Franchise Group does a strategic planning meeting. They'll allow me to bring my students over to witness how that meeting occurs. A lot of relationship building between people at United Franchise Group and the Titus Center. But also it's the same TBC Corporation. TBC owns Midas and Big O Tires. Mm-hmm. They're right in my backyard. If I call them, they come over. Mm-hmm. They support what we're doing. And a lot of other, My Eye Lab, it's right here in West Palm Beach. Batteries Plus, their sales office is on Palm Beach Island. Mm-hmm. And they're all members of my advisory board. I have about 80 franchise professionals, people like you, people who are CFEs, or they're founders of companies, or they, you know, they're the vice president of development. They meet twice a year on campus in my advisory board. And people give us a tremendous amount of support. Everybody wants to support franchise education. If you don't, there's something wrong with you. You know, because if you're in franchising, you should be supporting franchise education.
I totally agree. You know, and I know that we, at least I can say in behalf of the Latino Franchise Association, I really want to thank you for the support so far that you have providing us, and also specifically for participating and joining us at the Franquicia Fest event, the Franquicia Fest. In case that those of you that don't know about the event, it is the largest or the biggest Latino franchise expo in the United States. The Latino Franchise Association. I'm the CEO and founder of the Latino Franchise Association. Let's start from there so people get an idea what exactly are we up to and what we're doing. I've been in franchising for what? I've been in business 35 years, franchising over 20 years. But I realized that there are 63 million Latinos in the United States, doctor. 63 million Latinos generating $2.8 trillion. That if we will be a country, we will be the fifth largest.
Yeah.
The fifth largest country in the United States. I mean, in the globally. But meanwhile, when I try to look at the Latinos in the franchising industry, I don't see much happening. So I said, we need to make a move. We need to do something that can really help and accelerate the growth. I see now franchising, believe it or not, as the next step for the Latino community in the United States.
Absolutely.
You know, it has to be the next step. And I'm telling you, because I'm very well embedded within my Latino community, within the New York metropolitan area. I know my community, and I've seen many industry within the Latino community have disappeared. I can tell you some Latinos are, at least in New York, Latinos are huge for bodegas, you know, bodega grocery stores. At one point, we literally own almost 99% of the bodegas in the city. Yeah. I mean, we were huge with taxis as taxi driver. Yeah. A lot of them used to own delivery taxi driver. We are huge in beauty salons. Most of the beauty salons in the city are owned by Latinos, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I noticed that as things are changing, some of these businesses shifted ownership. Now there are other groups now that are now leading the bodegas, ownership. But every time I look at that particular industry, I know that is the Latinos, back then, many years ago, would have created a franchise that will regroup or associate all the bodega owners as a franchise, one huge franchise unit location. I'm sure that many of them would still be around and perhaps be multi-millionaires. So we created an association to connect the Latinos with the franchising industry ecosystem, with a franchising ecosystem, I will say, the franchisor, franchisees, and the suppliers. So everybody will benefit of the efforts that we're doing. That is not easy, by the way, Doctor.
No, I'm sure it's
not. A lot of work behind it. Yeah. So our first major event is taking place in August. It's called Franquicia Fest, and it's a 3 days event, but the expo is 2 days, Friday and Saturday, August the 5th. But we decided to kick off the event with a golf outing tournament. We said, why don't we do this? Let's start this with the right foot, and let's just start the day before with a nice golf tournament, so we can now embrace the networking, which happen all the time in franchising. Let's connect franchisor, franchisees, and people that are going to be participating in this huge event the day before. So after the golf outing, the next day we're going to be hosting the expo, and the expo is taking place at a nice venue that you know very well.
Yes, I do. I've taught there many times.
The venue is the New York Marriott Marquis Hotel, right in the heart of New York City in Times Square. So we have a whole floor to be, and the goal is to have at least 100 to 150 franchisors that be able to showcase their brand. But the most important component of what we're doing during those 2 days of the expo, it is the education. We have 4 breakout rooms there that we're going to have multiple different presentation and panel presentation. And we are so happy and excited to have you as one of the speakers. Why don't you tell us what is going to be your role and what is going to be your involvement?
Sure. I'm looking forward to it. It's very exciting, always exciting to be in New York City. And you've got the great location at the Marriott Marquis. So I'm going to teach 2 classes, one on August 4 and another one on August 5. So I'm going to teach Franchising 101, basic information. Most people don't know anything about franchising. They don't know how to find a good one. They don't know the good ones from the bad ones. They don't know what's expected. How much money is it going to cost? They don't know that there's a franchise disclosure document that's required by the government and required by New York State, that they can receive this document free. But how do you read the document and how do you use the document? I'm going to teach all that in Franchising 101. And then the other class I'm going to teach is, are you a perfect fit for franchising? Maybe you shouldn't be a franchisee. Maybe you should be a franchisor, or vice versa. So I'm going to teach, are you a perfect fit, to tell you, here's what's required. Here's what you need, the kinds of qualifications and skills that you'll need to have to be a franchisee or a franchisor. Or maybe you shouldn't buy a franchise or start a franchise. Maybe you should go to work for a franchise company, or do something like what you're doing, Rafael, or work in your organization. Lots of opportunities that people don't know about, and I'm going to be teaching that August 4 and 5.
I'm glad that you will be there and you will be witness of what we're going to accomplish. I mean, we're working very hard on promoting the event. I mean, we created a great partnership. We're bringing, some of the major TV network, Latino TV network, like Univision, Telemundo, the local radio stations. And we are also connecting with a whole bunch of chambers of commerce and Latinos business associations, Latino business chambers of commerce and associations that are they are really hungry to be able to be there and be able to connect. Sure. As a matter of fact, yesterday I was meeting with the New York, the president of the New York Latino Women Chambers of Commerce. Right. And they are so excited about this event that they want to participate. They want to have a panel. They're putting together a panel with successful Latina business women that really want to embrace the franchising industry and want to come in and invest, buy franchises, or perhaps launch their own business model, convert the business model into franchising.
Yeah.
All of this is great. I mean, what do you think about this? Do you think that it's time for the Latino really to embrace?
Absolutely. What took so long? Where have you been? Should have done this before.
I agree.
Yeah, now's the time. And that's why I say you got to come to Florida, because where's the Latin world in America? I know it's in New York, but it's down here in Florida as well. And a lot of Latins who live in New York also live in Florida part of the time.
Well, the goal, I was going to say that the goal of the Latino Franchise Association is to take Franquicia Fest all over the country. Yeah. Let's do it in New York, make sure that it's successful. And if you work in New York, I'm sure that it can work in Miami. You already said it. I'm sure that it can work in Chicago. Chicago, for sure. There are Latino in Chicago. What about Houston, Texas?
Yeah, Houston.
Or even LA.
LA, for sure. Phoenix is another location.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunity. Vegas would be another opportunity.
Yeah. So this event is gonna really determine the before and after. And right now, I think I mentioned it to you, we're working on getting some data together, because we need to know exactly how many Latinos are in the franchising industry, how many Latinos own a franchise brand. This is part of the research that the association is doing. How many Latinos owns a franchise brand? How many Latinos are considered to be a franchisees? They bought any type of franchise. And then with a push, with your support and the Titus Center for Franchising and the University of West Palm Beach, and all of those franchisors and brands that are supporting this effort, I'm sure that we'll be able to double, triple those numbers. I'm sure that when we look back a year, 2 years from now, we'll see that from 20, 30, or 40 franchise brand, we might go to 100, 200, or 300. For maybe, I don't know, franchisees, how many Latino are considered to be a franchisees? Let's assume that they are 5,000 or maybe 10,000. But why not? We should be able to have, we have enough numbers to have 100,000 franchisees, 200,000 franchisees out of 63 million of Latinos that are in the U.S.
Absolutely.
So the future would say exactly if this effort would be worth it. But I'm sure that I'm very excited, because we are creating history as we speak, as we move along and really do this. And I'm very happy that you are being part of the history, my friend.
I love that.
John Hayes. So I think that we are running out of time and we need to wrap it up. But I really want to thank you. I mean, for John, any final thoughts? Tell us.
Well, I'm excited. I hope I have at least 100 people in my classes. So please come out and visit us at Franquicias Fest, August 4 and 5. That's the place to be. If you want to learn about business, you want to learn about how to own your own business, generate wealth for yourself, a legacy for your family, you can do that in franchising. And the Latino world needs to really explode in the franchise world. And we'll make that happen starting August 4 and 5.
I totally agree. And in case that you want to register for Franquicias Fest, the event is free. Just go and visit our website. It's franquiciasfest.com. Go to www.franquiciasfest.com. The registration is free for people that wants to attend. And if any franchise brands, any franchisor, any supplier, company that wants to still be part of this great event and wants to exhibit, be an exhibitor, we still have some space available. So we would love to have you. Great. I think that's all we have for today. And it's been a great honor to have you, Dr. John Hayes. So
it's been my honor to be with you. Thank you.
So let's keep in touch, and looking forward to see you in New York City in August. Okay.
All right. Great. Bye-bye. See you.
Muchas gracias por escuchar nuestro podcast. Esperamos que la información haya sido de su agrado. Manténgase en sintonía. Síganos en todas las plataformas de social media y visite nuestra página en el internet www.mrfranquicias.com. Hasta la próxima.